up until about, I would say, 10th grade.
Mm.
Um, okay, so my mom had left the house at one point.
Mm.
So, and we were still cool with my mom because she would still come see us. And sometimes we spend night at her, with her and her sister,
Mm.
because her sister is where she was staying. Um, and everything was cool. Then about 10th grade, she started having mental problems.
Mm. I imagine, obviously, you explaining, like, look, it's not the best situation going on with your father and your mother, right? They're kind of clashing every once in a while. But it seems like you and your brothers tend to have a good relationship with your mother and your father separately in the connections you have. Was there any kind of trials and tribulations there, or was it always feeling pretty wholesome?
Well, okay. So this is where, growing up, it was okay.
Okay.
Up until about, I would say, 10th grade.
Mm.
Um, okay, so my mom had left the house at one point.
Mm.
So, and we were still cool with my mom because she would still come see us. And sometimes we spend night at her, with her and her sister, because her sister is where she was staying. And everything was cool. Then about 10th grade, she started having mental problems.
Mm.
So mental problems as in and I thought she was faking it.
Mm.
I'm a kid. I'm like, there's no way you can be doing this. So she would actually start speaking to herself in front of my dad. And then, my dad's like, I'm like, why is she faking it? My dad's like, don't say that. Like, she's not faking it. And I'm getting mad. I'm very upset because I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? If you want to, I'm thinking that she's doing it for my dad's attention. And I'm like, if she wants to get his attention, she just has to, be nice to him. Because this is all I know. All I know is that, coming up, it was clashes. I thought my mom was ignorant. But these are the negative thoughts that I'm having because of the clashing. But I still loved her because she was my mom.
Of course.
But, and once she actually started having the mental health problems, it kind of went downhill with our relationship. And then I remember having a talk with my dad, like, what is wrong with her? And he's like, well, I don't know. But make sure that you never, forget that that's your mom. Because, we would have full-blown arguments. My bad. We would have full-blown arguments while she was, under mental stress. And I'm thinking that this is just her, giving me hate. But it's really just her having mental problems. And when I think back about that, I'm like, dang, I was dumb. You know what I'm saying?
But you were young, man.
I was young.
You were young.
Indeed.
10 years on this planet, okay? This billions of years, these things, so just to kind of just, hold that over yourself, I don't think that's the type of, I don't think you should put weight on that. But I imagine that must have been hard. How was it for your, I know your brother has autism as well, and how was it for them? Were they hopefully having a good, were they experiencing similar?
I have never really asked him this question, but my youngest brother is 14 now.
Okay.
My brother has autism. I don't think he really remembers that well. And then the second oldest, I don't think he's very traumatized by it because they weren't really receptive to the situation at the moment. So, for me, I was like, dang, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I would never think that this type of stuff can happen to us. Let alone, the situation between my mom and dad splitting up. When that happened, my world was, in a shock. I'm like, dang. My dad preached family, and now all of a sudden you guys are not even together. And that was hard. That was hard. Yeah.
What made that hard?
Just seeing my mom and my dad, have different relationships. So my dad used to preach to me, when you get a girl, if you get married, stay with her. Don't leave her. If you have kids, don't leave her. You know what I'm saying? Big on being a good dude, good husband, good father. So just seeing them, break up, it was but you said, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
As a kid,
Right.
You're what your parents say is law.
Right.
So when they go back on their word, you're like, but you said this and
Right.
you said that. So I kind of had stigmatism for both of them. Like, oh my, like this is too much. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And then when I see them get into, like I said, when I see them get into different relationships, it was so weird for me.
How often did you get to see them? Was it kind of like you stay with your father or you stay with your mother and you got to, or was it kind of 50-50 type of thing?
My mom was always like coming around. I stayed with my dad because he was a breadwinner.
Sure.
So my mom would come around at least once a week, and sometimes we wouldn't see her 4 weeks. Like we'd leave, she would leave, and I wouldn't see her for a month. So yeah, it was kind of weird. I don't know. Like as far as like,
my parents were separated, and I could understand kind of the differences of like being one, but I was the only child, so it made a lot, I guess, more very different, you know. But I could definitely see the kind of separation and not having kind of that family dynamic anymore. Is this where you kind of started leaning more towards like your cousins and like your extended family, or hanging out with friends, or just being more dived into the video games? Like, what was kind of the escape there?
the escapism was the video game, the movies, and YouTube was coming up.
Oh yeah.
So I started to watch a lot of YouTubers and stuff like that. And like I said, my dad was a breadwinner. So my dad wasn't there to sit down with me all day. My brothers are young. We don't have the language to, talk to each other like, how do you feel about this? You know what I'm saying? So it's really just me, my video games, and my laptop. You know what I'm saying? And I go to school, and even then I'm in an environment where, it's not the best environment because, kids can be assholes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Keep it a buck.
Kids can be assholes. So I'm like, it's just really like a lot. That's why when I always look back, like you say, like it's good to look back. When I look back, I'm like, dang, like this really shaped me to be a certain type of person. You know what I'm saying? And I always have to self-correct. You know what I'm saying?
Right.